Hello, everybody. This is a probably a brief Merlin review of the newest Halloween movie, Halloween Ends, because a yeah, I'm tired and I have to go work, so I don't want to spend too long on it. But honestly, I still wanted to do it tonight because I just saw it a couple hours ago, and I don't want to draw it out and review it later, just because I feel like I'll lose any desire to do so pretty quickly. So, really, this is just picking up a couple years after the previous film, I guess, or a year after the previous film, maybe. I guess the last one took place 2019, right after when the last one was supposed to take. I don't know, but basically, it takes place a little bit after the previous ones. Laurie Strode is kind of come to terms with moving on. She's writing a book about the whole Halloween Michael Myers incident. Her daughter died the last film, but her granddaughter and her are living together. Her granddaughter's just trying to kind of get on with her life as well, trying to survive the trauma, and they seem like they're doing okay. But there's this young man who, spoilers here, by the way. I mean, it's how the film opens, but he is kind of, I guess, babysitting this rich family's kid in their rather large house at the night of the previous Michael Myers massacre tirade, and so yeah, he's kind of freaked out by it, like everybody else is, and the kids being kind of bratty. They're watching John Carpenter's The Thing, which I think is a fun nod after they say not to have the kid watch these things, but the kid's kind of messing with the older kid and locks him up in the attic. And he's so freaked out that he just kind of bangs on the door and pushes out, hitting the kid accidentally, and then sending him plummeting several feet down, killing him. And so this guy's basically considered to be a murderer, and everybody kind of hates him. He's shunned by the community, and it's kind of a replacement, I guess, for in people's minds for Michael Myers, who disappeared. So he's really bullied by a lot of people, given a hard time, and he actually develops kind of a connection, romance with Laurie Strode's granddaughter because she kind of feels like she's sort of going through something similar. They kind of bond, but things kind of get worse, and it almost seems like there's some sort of metaphorical commentary about the nature of evil, which this trilogy has been sort of kind of building up using Michael Myers as sort of a manifestation of that and representation of that as like a supernatural force, which they kind of have done before, but they kind of it felt like in the first movie they kind of towed the line between trying to make it more grounded and it was just kind of a general idea about Michael Myers, and then the second movie, they went all in with him being this force, and then they're kind of coming back with it again and trying to split the difference a little bit by saying, that evil kind of resides in everybody, but Michael Myers could kind of have that effect on people because this guy, after almost people attempting to murder him, these freaking high school kids are giving him a hard time. He discovers Michael Myers, who I guess has just been hiding out, chilling underground in like a little sewer area near this homeless guy, not doing anything. He wanders by him, and Michael doesn't kill him for some reason. I guess it's implied that he sees potential in him, and then he becomes sort of his protege, and they help each other kill different people to get revenge on the people that messed with the kid. Uh, well, he's not really a kid. I feel like he's in his early to mid 20s, at least. I don't know, but he's supposed to be younger, and and so they typically they team up for a little bit, and then he kind of decides he wants to sort of embrace the evil because everyone's basically claiming he's this, so he's just going to say, "All right, I'll be what everybody wants," and the guy just temporarily becomes the villain essentially, and it makes it seem like he's going to take over from Michael Myers, but then that doesn't really work out, and then Michael decides to do his own thing and kills him later anyway. So Laurie Strode, sees the evil within this kid, and although initially she wants to help him, so it's like almost implied maybe she wants to try to believe that somebody could be good. It's like a redemption thing to try and forgive Michael working through this guy, um, this younger kid. But then she's like, no, you're a threat, and then uh, so. um, but yeah, they do kill Michael Myers at the end, and they make sure that he's very, very dead in all conceivable senses, although he certainly could come back. But symbolically for this trilogy, he is very much dead. Um, yeah, so I feel like even describing that plot, you might have been a bit confused, and that's okay because this movie, I had been discussing this with somebody. I don't go out to the movie theaters too much, and I had actually said for the remainder of movies to go out into the theaters for my personal list for this year, there were two. There was this one, and there was the next Avatar movie. Now, uh, Avatar movie, obviously I have mixed feelings about the first one, but I generally liked it. It was a great visual experience in the theater. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna see that. Halloween, uh, I don't know why. I just felt kind of drawn to this new version. I saw the first one, the 2018 one, and I really really liked it. I thought that it was a very good kind of homage continuation of the original movie. I thought it was well shot, well edited. I liked the direction they were going. I thought that Michael was very imposing. I thought that some of it was not quite as well handled, like the stuff with Laurie Strode and his connection with her. I liked the metaphor; it was fine, but oddly enough, I feel like she's better developed in this movie. Strangely enough, I think more so than the last two. So that's one of the strengths of this one. But overall, I thought that one was a very good, artfully done, tense thriller slasher. I thought in technical terms, I thought it was very well done, even though it was kind of a back to the basics thing. The second one, I thought Halloween Kills, terrible title by the way. Uh, it was I definitely think they embraced this big idea, and I think this trilogy is trying to be more sophisticated and delve into more cerebral concepts, and I try to make it more artful, I suppose. Try to make the slasher movie a little more cerebral, a little more complicated, a little more artsy. Definitely a little more of an art house vibe to these last couple ones. Although really more so in the first movie. The second one kind of kept some of those concepts, but it really went over the top with it. It was very meta, kind of a meditation on the franchise itself, a lot of callbacks, a lot of cameos. It was like a weird combination of basically fan service and exploitation. And I it was no definitely a big step down from the 2018 movie, but it was still I thought kind of fun. And in terms of practical effects, the gore, I actually and I'll admit I haven't seen a lot of them, but from the slashers I have seen, I thought it was some of the best in terms of that. So even though I thought some of the actual themes and the plot and the character interrelations and the tone were a little wacky, it was not much worse than a lot of other slasher movies that I've seen, and I thought there were some good kills, and it was ridiculous and over the top, but I had fun with it. I think it was more focused. This one's trying to have big ideas too, and I think it's actually trying to push things further. And I have very, very mixed feelings with it because, well, okay, I'll start with just a couple negatives. See, I thought this was gonna be short, not so much. I knew that I was in trouble. Like I had two instances of knowing I was in trouble within the first like within the first like minute, 30 seconds of the movie, 20 seconds. First off, like okay, the title font that they use is like really very quickly slapped together. It's not very artsy. It seems almost deliberately like the most basic simple font they use for the titles, which seemed very off, like it was some, I don't know, like an 80s comedy or something. It was really weird. And then the music was like this soft rock. I don't know if it was like I, I, it was just it was just did not fit the tone of anything. Usually you got the creepy ambiance or the guitars or just the Halloween theme, but it was just like this laid back kind of like 70s 80s rock. I was thinking like Fleetwood Mac or something. It was really like I had no idea what it was, but it just did not fit the tone. And it kept on going and going like for a good bit of the intro. And it was like, okay, this feels like this is a joke. And at some point we're going to shift gears, and we do, but not right that quick. And then I saw four writers, story by four people, and I was like, oh no. Like, I knew, like, between the tone of the music they chose, which was did not was so off. It was either trolling or ironic, but it kept going for a long time. It didn't fade into the background, like, into the scene, like somebody listening to it. It was just it kept on, and then I saw 4 writers, and I was just like, look, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm sure someone could prove me wrong, but typically speaking, in my experience watching films, the more writers you have, the tendency is going to be bad. I don't think I've ever seen that I can recall a movie with 4 writers that was a great movie. I'm not even sure I've seen many that were very good. Honestly think 3 is the limit. I do. 1 writer, 2 writers, fairly concentrated vision. More than 3 people, I think 3 can be pushing it, but literally more than 3 people, it's just too much. So, and this movie felt like 4 different movies in one. And with 4 different tones, 4 different ideas, 4 different thematic drives and character focuses. I mean, it was like one part, it was like this gritty character drama exploration that was almost mimicking like true crime. You had almost like an indie romance between the 2 characters, and then you had Laurie Strode's her the family drama with her, and getting older and dealing with her issues and dealing with trauma, and you had the commentary just on violence, and then you had in the background you had a little bit of a slasher movie, and it really just feels like they wanted to make, mostly I think they just want to do the character study, which is very interesting on this young man main character, or seems like our protagonist for much of the movie, who becomes almost a kind of a protege to Mike Myers for a bit. The movie is really mostly an exploration on, I guess, evil and the effect of society on the individual, and nature versus nurture, and the choices we make, and the nature of evil in general. So it was actually, in that sense, his performance was good, and I think the writing was good. It was effective, and seeing him slowly build up to be the villain, and I almost would say, okay, that's subversive. That's trying something new and different for Halloween, from what I've seen, and a lot of slasher movies. Quite ambitious, but the problem is it doesn't fully commit to that because he doesn't take over. They have Mike Myers come in and kind of cut that storyline out. Like, literally, I guess he cracks his neck, but pun sort of intended there. And it just feels like Michael Myers, we're coming to Halloween to see the Michael Myers slasher element, him killing people, and even the Laurie Strode callbacks, those elements. That's all like an afterthought. He is like an afterthought in his own movie. And I guess that's the idea of evil is beyond more than just this person. But like I said, there's not enough focus on any aspect of any of these elements. The romance, the granddaughter, even Laurie, even with her elements. There's just all these different storylines. None of them are fleshed out enough. There's kernels of it that are good, some of them interlock, and there's some good moments of drama. There's some good ideas. There are good performances. There is some good writing. Some, it's like pieces of a good story. Like I felt like I was like a fourth of a good movie or a third of a good movie. I was really intrigued, a little uncomfortable, but I thought, okay, this has potential to, in some ways, be the most daring and darkest of slasher movies, because it was trying to almost really kind of watch us build a slasher villain from the ground up and see him almost sympathetic to begin with, and then slowly develop into becoming a really evil, scary individual, which we've seen done in longer form series and TV shows. It was like we're doing that to the slasher villain. So on one hand, I really appreciate that ambition. And that's, I think, as the biggest part of the movie, that's probably the most interesting aspect, but it's only like a third or a fourth of the movie, and it's not fully developed, and it clashes with these other stories that, they're all kind of trying to do the same thing, but nobody gets quite enough time, even though it's almost 2 hours long. And I also clocked it in, other than the shock death of the kid, because I think it's like, oh, Michael Myers doesn't kill kids. And then we actually see this brutal murder, well, not murder, but this death of a kid kind of related to Michael Myers in a way. That's kind of for shock value. But I checked. Um, the movie's almost 2 hours long. It is like almost a full hour before anybody gets murdered in a slasher sense, before Michael Myers kills anybody. It's like almost an hour, like halfway through the movie. And I would say, like, sometimes there is a buildup. Okay, the slow burn can be effective, and then they might go boom, boom, boom with the kills. But the problem is there aren't that many. They're not that creative or as interesting as in the previous ones. they don't feel as meaningful, oddly enough. There's not as much going on with many of the characters. They do create some of the most unlikable ones, like the high school bullies clearly are telegraphed, and the DJ who's just kind of mocking everybody relating to the town, and Michael Myers, like he's of course is going to get it, and they do get it pretty bad, but they're kind of almost too quick. The effects don't seem to be quite as good. They're edited really quickly, so some of it's really in the dark. And I'm just saying, it doesn't necessarily always have to be really gory, but just considering the level of detail and effort in the practical effects in the last one, the kills were minimal and just less impactful and interesting here, and that's kind of unfortunate. And I would imagine for more hardcore traditional slasher fans and people that want to see Halloween movies like this, one of the big draws is you want to see the slasher just kill people in interesting ways. That's kind of the art of it. That aspect of it is oddly enough. I'm not saying that it can't have an interesting story, but generally speaking, the point is you want to go see the bad guy kill people, dumb teenagers usually, in creative ways. And that's one of I don't, and I'm not saying that the slasher has to be limited to that formula and that expectation, but that is kind of one of the main draws that's been established for decades, which Halloween helped create. And it kind of lets us wait a little too long, makes us wait a little too long for, I don't think, enough payoff for that. And even within the elements and aspects of its own story, the payoff feels a bit underwhelming. Like we kind of had the big matchup in the first movie that was done so well between Laurie and before between Strode and Mike Myers, and it was, I mean, with the flames and all the traps inside, with all the shotguns and the mannequins, it was so atmospheric and amazing use of lighting and editing, and like the face off was there, the clash was there, and it feels like we do it again. And I guess okay, they're going to try to make, oh, he's just a man, but then they've said that he was more than a man, he was evil. So these movies have never really decided, even within their own story, their own narrative, okay, is it just a metaphor, or is he actually a force of evil, or is he just a guy that happens to be evil, or or sometimes you can't. I feel like maybe there's a way to kind of balance it all out and say that it's both, but they don't ever commit, and it seems like it bounces between each movie. And Mike Myers, Michael, I love the moments when he's in here and he does seem intimidating, but he doesn't do that much. And he goes out. It's so unintimidating because I know he's supposed to be older, but he is this big tough guy. He spends most of it injured and lumbering, I guess, from the last movie. But then he's fighting, this woman who's in her 60s, who's getting thrown around, who should probably be bruised and having broken bones. And, she's getting so physical and managing to kind of overtake him. And it just feels like we already did this better in the 2018 movie. So it's like everything was much more focused in that one. And the second one, it was a bit more overblown, but at least it was still kind of focused with what it wanted to do. This one, it's like it's so all over the place. Uh, so yeah, I felt like this movie had a lot of really interesting ideas, and it had some good ambition. There were parts of it that were good, but even I like the fact that it's trying to be a little more, I guess, highbrow and artful to the slasher movie. I don't think that a slasher film necessarily has to be super simple all the time. I'm glad they're trying to kind of break the formula a little bit, and I know other films probably have done better with it too, but based upon what I've seen, I just feel like this one kind of fizzles out with some ideas that they already explored better and just executed better in the last movie and in the first one. And in the Halloween Kills, I hate to say it, Halloween Kills I feel like was honestly a dumber movie than this, and that's no, I really think so. It was a dumber plot, and it was very heavy-handed in its themes, just as much as here or in either the previous two. But at least those other ones were more focused and consistent, and they were more fun. They were more entertaining. They were paced better. It's kind of one of those elements that just is unfortunate. It balances out. Like I think Jamie Lee Curtis does probably her best work of the three movies in this one, and I think that some of the romance and the character study stuff with the protege were good, and the moments with Michael that were kind of creepy were creepy. But there are some things that don't work. Like everybody is blaming her for creating this idea of the boogeyman and him coming out, and it's like her fault, and that's extremely weak. I know what they're trying to go for, but I it just sometimes the characters will talk in this metaphorical language, and I just think people aren't going to speak like that. There's no reason she should be blamed for this. I mean, I guess people will look for scapegoats if that's what you're saying, but I don't know. It was just really rough. I was very disappointed in this. I felt the length. The one person in the theater kept commenting about how bizarre the whole thing was, and normally I like weird, but I like weird if it's somewhat consistent and it's honestly it's just better executed. I mean, if it's better shot and better edited, and if the ideas are strongly punctuated by good performances, and at least it's one movie. This literally felt like three or four movies just bouncing around, and none of them got to be a full movie. It just makes me wonder, like, in the writing room, do they just, give these people enough freedom because they had two successful movies and said, you can do whatever you want? And then I just think about how some of these scenes were edited, and just how we put this as the final film and we said this was good to go. And I know this happens all the time, but this just is one of those examples where it just comes really clear to me, like, wow, like things can get pushed through, and I'm pretty sure not everybody fully agreed, but it's like we gotta put out the product, I guess. But it's like I admire the ambition, and I forget. I don't know. I actually forget what letter grade I gave it because, and over the damn reviews that we do letter grades sometimes. I don't know. It's like I really didn't. I liked some things about it, but man, this is like a probably like a D plus, maybe a C minus. Like I because there's some stuff in there that's really good, but it's just bogged down by all the crap, and none of it gets to fully develop. If they picked like one movie, I mean, the most interesting thing is the character study, and I think that could have been a really good movie, but then it wouldn't have really been Halloween. And maybe there's a way to do that without Michael Myers, but I'm pretty sure that would take a lot of people off because in this trilogy, that's what they were building up to. So it's like they just wanted to use this as a platform to tell a couple other stories. Like they were tired of their own Halloween story before it finished. Like they could have just made another separate movie and it would have been good. Like, would have been very interesting, but they chose Halloween for it. So I'd say just stick with the 2018 one if you want that kind of callback face off, and then Halloween Kills for the kills actually. And this one, I don't know, has some good parts, but honestly, I don't know. It was rough. It was very uneven, very disappointing. So if anybody watched it and got something else out of it that I missed, please let me know. I'm always looking for the positive. I really am. I do, but I did not enjoy this movie, and it was just too much of a slog, too much of a mess. I couldn't ignore it. Yeah, despite all the good in it, it was like it got bogged down by all these other things. So very unfortunate, but yeah, I have seen all of those of the most recent Halloween trilogy films in theaters. So I don't know why I did that, but I did it, and it kind of fizzled out there at the end. But first one was good. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening. This was longer than I expected, of course. Well, of course. All right, everyone. Take it easy and stay magical.